I learned about this from my barber. He makes his own. He's an old Italian guy. I don't go to him often because I don't like the way he cuts my hair. But every once in a while, I got to learn more about the Italian stuff. So I go see him. I'm like, okay, I'll sacrifice my hair. And he knows about lardo because he learned it from Poe.
His dad?
Yeah, or his grandmother maybe. But that's, you know, the real old school. Now, in a restaurant setting, you can make that too, but you got to be careful that if you're letting stuff hang out, you know, in the open air, that the health department doesn't say, all right, that's no good. It's in the danger zone. You know what I mean? Any of the fermented stuff that you're doing in a restaurant, like salamis and things like that, you usually need a HACCP plan. All right? You'd have to have a HACCP plan in place. So it's nice to think, all right, I'm going to make grandma's recipe, but you got to prove that it's safe to eat. You could say, look, grandma's still alive, but that's not going to cut it in the health department. All right. So now what we're doing is taking off the fat back. All right. This is the thick fat back, and that's why.
Is there like a natural seam in there?
Yeah, there's sort of a seam. But I'm not following it perfectly. This is a really nice, solid fat back. Now, my nephew raised Mangalitsa pigs this year, and we did the hog slaughter around Thanksgiving back in November. And what happened was he fed it barley towards the end of its life. And when you feed the pig barley, it makes a fat that's very rich and creamy and almost melts in your hands.
Wow.
This one was fed primarily a corn and soy diet. He didn't get any barley.
Why?
So the fat is, because that's the way Sugar Hill does it. And barley is very expensive.
But why barley gets the fat kind of like melty?
Yeah, it makes it a different structure.
Different structure?
Yeah, it's a different acid structure. It makes it very palatable fat. So when I was working on his pig, it almost melts in your hand. But this is a good quality fat right there. That's fat back. All right? That's fat back. That's true. So you can buy that as a separate thing. And then this is called what?
This is called Boston butt.
That's the Boston butt. Right. And this?
Picnic.
Picnic. Good. And pork skin? And what would you do with pork skin?
Fry it.
Yeah, you could cut it like this,
Make it do a stock.
and then you cook it in water, get it soft, so you can almost push your finger through. Then you dry it, like almost dry, not completely. Like throw it in the oven or a dehydrator for a while. And then you drop it into hot fat, and then it puffs up. And that becomes chicharron. Then you put a little bit of, I put a little cayenne pepper and salt and chili on the outside, and you eat it. You could put it over the top of like a dish. You roast the dish, and then you put the
And your tacos and
Chicharron
they're
on the top.
crunchy and
In
salty.
Chinese will even like cook it again, like cook it in the soup.
And then you
Like
could
they fry
take
it,
it
you
and you
cook it
can
in
put it in soup, exactly. Or you could cut it into strips, and it becomes gelatin. It becomes really soft.
And in soup dumplings, they use a lot of pork skins. That's why it's like called milk.
Yeah, it's good. Gives it a lot of body, a lot of flavor. Okay? Pork skin. You make gloves. Back in the day, they would take the boar, a really hardy, thick-skinned pig that was older. And they would use it for shoes, and they would use it for making even shields.
Shields.
Yeah. Where you would, like, when they shoot the arrows, it'd be like, okay. Crazy.
American cat. Shield.
That's a long time ago. You don't have to worry about that. Now, next thing we're going to do is take off the belly. One of the things the Italians do is they get a younger pig, right? A young pig that would be smaller, and they would bone all of this out as one big piece. And then they stuff it and roll it. And that's called a porchetta. A real porchetta would be from a younger pig, a little bit younger pig, and imagine the belly and the loin all rolled together and roasted. And then the skin becomes like a crackling on the outside. Ooh, that's delicious. That's a real porchetta. You could do it with an older pig. It works, but it's not the same as when you get a nice young.
Yeah.
Now others would take a suckling pig.
They have this dish at
Yes,
Mediterranean kitchen,
and
right?
the suckling pig is a young pig that's only 18 to 35 pounds, like a really small pig. And you bone out the whole thing and then stuff it and roll it.
They have this
That's
dish at
porchetta too.
Mediterranean kitchen.
But realize the suckling pig is very expensive.
Yeah.
Now, why is the suckling pig expensive?
This is young.
Make it up for the poundage they're not gonna get.
Right, you think about it, this thing gets to this big in just 6 months, right? So you're not getting that value. Plus, it's the most expensive time to raise a pig is that first few weeks. All right, you have to take care of the mother. You got to make sure the piglet is warm. He's drinking milk. There's a lot of care that goes into that first, month of life for a pig. Then once it's past that, then they're easy. Then you just feed them and they just hang out.
Is there like a season, to start raising pigs? Like you don't want to.
Well, I mean, in the modern society of raising pigs, you could do it year round, all right? But the traditional time on a farm was to have them born in the spring, and then you harvest in the fall. And the reason for that was multiple. One, it starts to get warmer, so you can deal with a pig as a baby, you know what I mean? And you're not freezing like today. Two, it's ready in the fall, just when all of your crops are finished, and you have all of those extra, like garbage crops, like all the sheaves, all the extra plant stuff. Maybe if you're raising sweet potatoes, you've got like all the extra sweet potatoes or any kind of potatoes that you could give them. So the pig was like a garbage disposal for the farm. And then you feed it all that extra stuff at the end of the fall, and then it starts to get cold out. You don't have refrigeration, you have cold weather, so you do them in then, and that's, you hang them and you have your pigs. And then, yeah, it was all like a symbiotic relationship with the weather and the farm and all the other animals, all that other crap. Some farmers would take the milk from the cow, right, and make cheese. And then what is the byproduct of cheese making? Byproduct of cheese making was whey. Remember whey? We talked about that when? Yesterday. And we made whey and we fed it to calves, right, for making veal. But in those farms, they would feed that whey to the pigs. Whey protein is a valuable food source for the pigs. So that's when you see the original Parma prosciutto, right? What cheese is made in Parma, Italy? Parmesan. So there's lots of whey. So they would feed that to the pigs, and you get a really hearty, hard fat pig that's gonna cure very well. So it was all like just related. I know a farm up in Washington County or Northern Columbia County, which is the next county up. It's a place called Raven and Boar. They raise pigs and they feed them whey and fermented corn. They feed them all kinds of fermentations and stuff. They get a very high quality pork for curing. You haven't heard of them because they're tiny and they sell to a few places in New York City. They get top dollar. All right, now what I'm going to do is take off the belly. The belly is its own primal. There's 5 primals in pork. In beef and in veal, there was 4 primals, right? Round, loin, rib, chuck. In pork, you have the ham, the full loin, the Boston butt, the picnic, and then the belly. So there's 5 primals. You got that? Ham, loin, Boston butt, picnic, belly.
Does it include the spare ribs?
Yes.
The loin.
The belly is spare ribs?
Yeah, the belly would have the spare ribs attached till you take them off. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to saw this off. There's 3 types of ribs, really. Once I saw this off, I'm going to lean a little bit into the loin side to make the belly a little bit bigger. There. That's now the belly. All right, and this is the loin with the skin still on. Now the belly has this rib cage in here, and those are your full rack spare ribs. And then you also have this rib cage in here. The rib cage in the loin, that's called the baby back ribs. All right? So baby backs come from the pork loin. If you bone out the pork loin, you have baby back ribs. If you left the bones in, you'd have pork chops. All right? So that's that. Now, there's also a trimmed version of this, and I'll explain once I get this off.
Is that a hanger steak?
No, this is the skirt steak. The hanger was cut in half. It sits in the middle. Now, when I take off these ribs, I do kind of a bad job. Why?
So they get more meat.
So I have some more meat on them, right? It's hard for me to do it. Because I'm so used to cutting close to the bone. And here I don't want to be too close to the bone. I want to leave a little bit of meat on. So a lot of the pork bellies that you see made in the US will be a little bit thin because they left half the meat on the ribs. Because ribs are a big deal. If I go down to Queens, there's a shop called Munkins. Munkins is a Romanian butcher. And they bone out the ribs and leave all of that rib meat on the belly and make a really thick bacon, which is good, but then you don't get ribs. So it's a give and take world, you know what I mean? So in the European butchery style, they would bone out the ribs. They have a device called a rib puller. I know, it's crazy, but they don't eat the barbecue. So it's just different styles of cutting. But that's now a full rack spare rib. All right, full rack spare rib looks like this, right? And then they'll take this part off right through here. They'll block this off, this nice skirt meat, and then they call this the St. Louis rib. St. Louis ribs are the trimmed version of the full rack spare rib. All right? So you'll see some places will order St. Louis rib because the St. Louis rib is more consistent. So the least expensive, the cheapest one, would be the full rack spare rib. Then the next expensive would be the St. Louis, because you trimmed it. And then the most expensive
Baby.
would be the baby back ribs from the loin.
Is
Yeah.
it the St. Louis cut? Like the traditional barbecue cut? For
Yeah, that's what
St.
they
Louis
use
people?
like for all of the competitions in barbecue. They use St. Louis ribs, and it's not that they're from St. Louis. It's the style of cutting. They're blocked off, so they're nice and even and square. Personally, I really like this part attached to my rib because that's like a nice meaty piece. But when you want consistency, you go with St. Louis. All right. So you understand? Full rack spare rib, St. Louis rib, baby back rib. 3 different styles, 3 different prices. All right? It's not just a thing on the menu, it's an actual purchasing.
What are this part of soft bones attached to?
Yeah, that's called the brisket bone. And
Is it attached to-
you can buy that too as like a little riblet. Some places make those.
Meat rib.
And they're good for, again, for stock, for sauce, for flavor.
All right, hear me out, Chef. It's gonna sound weird, but you know the McRib, right?
Yeah.
Is that an actual cut, or is
No,
it
that's
just
a
like
that's
just
a
like pressed
formed,
together?
Yes,
mashed
that's a
together?
formed meat.
Okay.
That's a formed meat that they're probably using pork butt trim or
McRib.
and they have a they have like a mash and they press it with the shape.
Is it even?
Yeah, it's pork, but it's not a real thing.
They serve it. They serve it at McDonald's. It's a classic. You know, when it comes around, I'll take you guys.
They put the fake rib looking stuff.
Really?
Is that seasonal salt?
It's a classic
Okay.
thing.
It's a class. It's like
Okay, I'll go.
I never see that on the menu.
I know because it
The
comes and goes.
McRib.
It's like it shows up and then disappears. Like
It was back like a month ago.
Make
They,
rib.
they always make a big deal out of it. They're like, the McRib is back.
So it's seasonal, huh?
and then everyone goes crazy. Well, not everyone, but I do.
My father loves McDonald's. You know what he says? They have the cleanest bathroom. That's the only reason he goes in there.
Talk about
Take a shit.
talk about the dirtiest. Talk about the dirtiest.
Have you ever been inside Walmart?
Yeah, those are like in the
Yeah.
back, like.
All right,
Scary.
so I blocked off that belly a little bit. Now we have a really nice squared off belly. This is ready for bacon. All right. So curing for bacon, there's a couple of ways you can go about it. One, you would brine it. You put it in a salty brine, and that cures it very quick. A lot of your commercial bacon is brine cured. The other way is to rub it with salt, pack it in salt, and then let it sit for about 10 days. Flip it around a little bit, let it even sit a little bit longer than that. That would be a dry cured bacon, much higher quality flavor, very intense. And then another thing you could do is to cure it, salt it, and not smoke it. And that would be salt pork, or if you flavor it, that would be pancetta. Pancetta would be a cured, salted pork belly. Sometimes, a lot of times you'll see the pancetta will be tied into a spiral.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's rolled. Pancetta is rolled up. You can make it yourself though. It's relatively simple. You could do flat pancetta if you're going to use it for cooking. You know, places again will do the carbonara with pancetta. You can do your own. It's pretty simple. Buy a pork belly, salt it with the spices, let it hang out in the walk-in. You don't want to deal with the health department leaving it out, but you could. I mean,
Chef, where would you like store this at home? Like if I was trying to.
That's what I was about to ask.
You were?
Yeah.
All right.
The fridge.
Because
What?
Like in,
Just-
I mean, like in the fridge, can you like,
can you just
what if I'm making pancetta?
no?
if you're just gonna
Cure it.
Cure it? Yeah, I put it in a cooler and put it out back. I have cold places outside, like my shed. I wait till it's cold out. I can't do it in the summer so easy. I mean, I would do it in the fridge if I was doing it in the summer. But this time of year, I put it in a cooler so no creatures can get to it.
does it have to be like refrigeration temperature? Can it be like cellar temperature?
It can, if you're doing it on your own, it can be warmer. I would say up to like 45, 50 degrees.
Like root cellar.
Yeah, but
Is it better
you know,
to-
if you're dealing with the health department,
Yeah, yeah.
you got to keep it below 40.
Is it better to have like higher temperature for the curing?
If you're, there's a couple of thoughts behind that. If you're curing to ferment, then a little bit warmer is actually necessary. But you got to be careful because you can spoil it. Can
If
go
it's
the
just
wrong
aging,
way.
then it doesn't have to be like
Once it's cured, then you can age it at a room temperature.
room
You
temperature.
know, then you can go warmer. But, you know, all of that said, you gotta be really careful with the health department because they don't want stuff sitting out that you made. You know, they want you to show that it's shelf stable, that you have a HACCP plan, that you've recorded temperatures throughout the process. You know, they want to see pH drop within a certain window of time. It's complicated.
What kind of charcuterie is like fermented?
Huh?
Like what kind of like, typical?
All like any prosciutto is fermented. All of your dry cured salamis are fermented. A lot of different stuff is fermented. All right, so, but that's tricky. You know what I mean? Like if you're gonna ferment, you're talking tricky stuff.
How can it make it safe? Is it because of nitrous salt they add in there?
Well, you can add certain salts, of course, but even that, you have to show that it's not in the danger zone for any length of time.
Because for
You have
fermenting
to
is
show.
definitely in the danger zone, right?
Yeah, I ferment at 90 degrees. You know, it has to warm up to ferment.
There's
You're
no way to
creating the
ferment.
right bacteria.
Yeast are inactive below 55 degrees.
Yeah,
So
there's no way you can ferment it if it's not in danger zone.
Right.
Otherwise, it's not so dangerous.
yeah.
It doesn't get the tangy taste of
everything. Flip the pork, right?
All right, so now I'm taking off the skin again, off of the loin. We're almost done with this. This is the loin, and I could pull the fat back off with the skin and then strip it, but it comes off nicer when you do it like this.
Put your finger in.
The other thing about this
Cover your mouth.
is this skin is fairly dry. If I bought a half a hog, I would let it hang, if possible, in my walk-in for about a week, maybe longer. My nephew ages for about 2 weeks. You know, when we do the hog slaughter, you wash it, you let it hang. He's got his own walk-in that he built. And so then you let it hang and let it dry, and the skin gets easier to peel off then.
He has his own walk-in in his house.
Yeah, in a barn.
That's crazy.
In the barn.
Well, in his barn.
In his mom.
But still, still walking.
He cools it with what's called a cool bot. You know what that is? I'm not telling you. All right, I'll tell you. It's just an air conditioner that you trick. It's like a little control that you attach to your air conditioner. And it sets the air conditioner in the wall, and the whole room is insulated. And then it just turns the air conditioner into like a compressor.
Wow.
So it tricks it so the air conditioner just keeps running.
That's awesome.
And then again, you know, the day we did it, it was like 25 degrees out at night, so it didn't have to do anything. You know what I mean? It was cool outside. Right now, the world is a giant freezer. It's great. But if you're in a big, you know, hotel, a restaurant, proper place, you can't put stuff outside. That's crazy. You know what I mean? You would have to have the correct equipment. You have to have everything logged.
The restaurant I was at, we built a custom unit for it. Like we bought a whole new walk-in, and then built a box inside of the walk-in that we
To age it.
Well, and then we made it out of Himalayan salt blocks. So we
Uh-huh.
actually made it like a brick wall out of salt.
Yes.
And closed it.
Control humidity.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's excellent. And that's perfect for aging because it keeps the humidity down. Yeah, that's cool.
I have some very expensive aging fridge.
Mhm.
Control center.
Well, and that's what we did. Is we looked. My chef wanted to get into being able to age and everything like that, and we looked at units. And if you buy a purpose-built dry aging unit, they're crazy expensive.
Yeah,
It was
we have-
cheaper for us to modify a walk-in fridge on our own.
Right, and it does work fine. Upstairs, we have what's called the Stanginello machine, which controls humidity. You can monitor everything that's going on in it.
The machine that's in the basement with all the
Yeah,
meat
the one
hanging?
by the Garmager class.
Oh, yeah.
And it would monitor everything that's going on in there, including pH level. So you can record it all for a HACCP plan, but you could do it yourself without that. And there's a couple of other companies that are doing the same kind of equipment, but the Stanginello is like really expensive.
It's very expensive.
But you can modify your own walk-in, like you said. You do it. You just have to be able to show temperature, and show your plan. Now I'm taking off the fat back. Now, were you doing a dry cured meat in there, or were you doing just an aging meat?
He was wanting to do both. I'm not sure what he's got going in there now.
The aging temperature is kind of too low for curing, right?
Yeah. Well, no, once you have it cured and fermented, then you could put it in that
Just
same.
for aging.
You're
it's
just drying
it's just
it
aging.
for
The fermenting is high temperature.
fermenting. You need it warm for about a day.
How could those like charcuterie batteries pass the hygiene requirement of like
What do you mean?
for the fermentation process?
You have to have to show your plan. You have the plan.
How could it be safe?
It's safe because you're creating the right bacteria, like cheese making. You know what I mean? How is cheese safe to eat? It's rotten milk. Well, it's not. It's fermented.
That's really cool process. I start making hot pickles. Get a little mason.
Fermentation is a very interesting thing. It's very popular right now.
That's fun.
You know, fermentation of, I mean, it's an age-old art. Of fermenting vegetables, fermenting meat, fish.
Like kombucha, those kind of like drinks.
Yeah, exactly. It's very healthy for you.
Sitting over here talking to Tim about kombucha.
So how does that not make you sick? Well, it's the right bacteria.
Do you have a mother?
I say, I'm ordering my SCOBY on Amazon.
You're making kombucha on your phone? That's cool. Kombucha is getting popular again.
It is.
It's like a fermentation.
Yeah, it is.
Basically, and then like the fermentation basically eliminates it. It's like, it's weird. Basically.
Then you could ferment barley and hops.
What?
Yeah, let's do that in our donut
And make beer.
beer.
We don't have toilets in our dorm rooms.
Right.
I don't want to know anything about what happens down below here.
What's it how to make sausage?
All of this is what?
Fat.
Fatback. That's a very high quality fatback
Oh,
right
that's
there.
beautiful.
Fatback like this, if I buy it from like D'Artagnan, from a specialty distributor, it'd be $3 a pound, at least, for just fat.
What did you say you would do with the fatback when you showed it?
So this could be salted into lardo. This could be rendered.
What else can you do with the fatback? Except for
Well, you render it. You turn it into. You can also cut it into cubes, like this, and you'll see it as a garnish in a sausage, in the mortadella. If you've ever seen mortadella, I'll show it to you later. It has chunks of white fat all through it. So there's different sausages that would have that. You could also crisp that, and that becomes lardons, like little. When you render this and you get the lard off of it, and then you have the leftover, it's like a little crispy, crunchy thing. Put a little salt on it, and then put it over salad. All right, so that's everything, almost everything. Last things to do. This is a full primal pork loin. If we count, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. All right?
It's the same structure as the beef, 30.
What we're going to do is turn this into a center cut pork loin. Center cut means it has 11 ribs. 11 rib center cut is what you're going to work on tomorrow. So we're going to take this end off. And that would be a chop. Why do they call it chop?
Just chopping up the
Because you chop these with what? So this is a cleaver. A meat cleaver is thick, heavy, like a hammer. All right. The old timers would put the cleaver in and they would hit it with a hammer. Every once in a while you'll see like an old cleaver with all dents here. I don't do it that way. I just chop. Now I shouldn't be chopping on this table because
You just got it.
I could scar it. You know what I mean?
Can we sew it?
Get wrecked.
Can we just
So-
sew it?
You could saw it, yeah. I saw it from this side, and then I could saw between, and then just cut it with the knife. But that would be a blade chop. This has the blade bone in there. Sometimes they'll take this and they'll turn this into what they call country style ribs. All right, that would be country style spare ribs. All right, country ribs, they're good for barbecue and things, more of a retail item. All right, but you could also leave that as it is. Then we have this. This is the sirloin, right? Does that look like a nice chop? No, it looks like a steak. You know what I mean? So we're going to take this off right here at the last.
How many ribs does a pork have?
Sometimes 14,
Sometimes 14.
Why sometimes?
So one more there.
sometimes 13,
Why sometimes?
because that's the pig.
How about beef? Is it always 13 for beef?
Yeah. So I'm trying not to hit the table, and I didn't. But you would do this on a butcher block. That's the butcher block, right? The butcher block is a much more solid piece of wood with the grain going down. This one, the grain is going across, so you never chop on this. Don't do what I did.
Don't do it.
So this is now our center cut pork loin. If you look at the center cut pork loin, right? This end of it, that's your pork porterhouse. See the top of the T and the center of the T right there? That's your T-bone or porterhouse.
T-bones.
All right, you see it? So this end of the pork loin,
This is the tenderloin, right?
yeah, exactly. This end of the pork loin gets turned into pork porterhouse, and these would be rib chops. All right? So they'll sell pork porterhouse as a separate thing, as a high value item. If we bone it out, which is what we're going to do tomorrow, we'll take out the tenderloin, and then we'll take off the ribs, and the ribs become baby back ribs, and the pork tenderloin becomes the pork tenderloin, which is about that big around. All right? And you can buy those as separate items as well. So there's your whole pig. This is now the center cut pork loin. You understand what is center cut? What means center cut? The sirloin end was removed and the blade end was removed, leaving only the consistent center for the consistent chops. These odd pieces are taken off. And like I said, in other cultures, they would leave this attached to the ham. So the ham would be longer. When you see the jamon iberico or the jamon serrano, it's long, right? Also, this piece would have been taken off, making this longer, making the copa. All right? So there's different ways to break down the pig than what we did.
So you always have like 11 ribs here? 11.
This is 11. Yeah, this is an 11 rib center cut. This is exactly what you're going to break down tomorrow. All right, so let's get this out of here.